Now, in a minute, we're going to take a look at how Mayor de Blasio's administration is dealing with the homeless and as well as the criticism that they're receiving. But first, just take a walk in New York City and you yourself will see how bad the situation is becoming. And Dominic did just that, and he spoke to a few people near Penn Station.
For some, perception is reality.
In my opinion, there are more.
More.
Right, more homeless, more asking for money, asking for anything that they can get. Right, more and more young people.
And more young people.
Young people, right.
Is the problem worse than in years past, in your opinion?
By far. I've lived here all my life. I'm 77 years old. I've never seen it like this.
I think it's worse. I think it's much worse, as evidenced by the amount of people that you actually see in public that are actually homeless. If it's gotten better, I don't see it. And somebody needs to show me some figures saying that it's gotten better, but to me it's gotten actually worse.
What can be done to solve the problem?
Well, you got to remember, a lot of the people that you're seeing out on the street are mentally ill. It seems like there's no place to put these people. They're not being cared for properly. So as far as what to do, I don't have that answer. But obviously something needs to be done. But I just simply don't have that answer.
Do you blame Mayor de Blasio?
No. This is a problem long before Mayor de Blasio. So you can't blame Mayor de Blasio. Everything is cyclical. It's been a cycle with every administration. It seems like nobody's taking care of the homeless. So I can't blame Mayor de Blasio. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Others see this picture entirely different. Have you seen more homeless around?
I have not. I've seen less homeless around. I've only seen maybe one or two homeless people. Years ago, I used to see many more.
So,
but now it seems better.
So you haven't seen that many here in Penn
No,
Station?
Not at all.
Perhaps at the end of the day, this comes down to the eye of the beholder.
Now, speaking of the mayor, his position on the homeless has been evolving. At first, he played it down and said that it was largely a perception problem. But a few weeks later, after the media jumped all over him, he said, in fact, it is a growing problem. But how you deal with the problem depends on whom you ask. Now, here's what former Mayor Rudy Giuliani had to say as he described what's going on his block.
I myself, 2 weeks ago, had to go to a precinct to complain about a homeless person who was defecating and urinating. You chase them, and you chase them, and you chase them, and you chase them, and they either get the treatment that they need or you chase them out of the city.
Or you shoot them.
Yeah, he's obviously not happy with the administration's approach, and the feeling is mutual. De Blasio's spokeswoman, she fired off this statement regarding the former mayor. Now, instead of getting rid of people, Mayor de Blasio, she says, wants to implement long-standing solutions to homelessness, building new shelters, providing supportive services, and ensuring that the mentally ill homeless will receive the care that they need. All right, I want to bring in the rest of our panel on this. Richard Brodsky's a former Democratic New York State Assemblyman. He's now a senior fellow at Demos, as well as a professor at NYU. Dominic Carter, who you met, who filed that report. And also Bill O'Reilly, Republican strategist, and Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. Okay, guys, there seems at least finally to be consensus, as Dominic found, by all involved, that you got a real problem. The mayor, in fact, went to basically a homeless conclave there, a tenement, if you will, and put a picture on it as well. But the elusive problem is what to do about it. The mayor has said in no small part that Albany should be doing more. Before we solve it, where does the blame lie? I know it's shared by more than one person, but where do you think it does?
How about this? Where does the solution lie? The solution lies with, first, a recognition that you have a problem. This is a hard thing to recognize in the richest city in the world. Second of all, what's the problem? Is it mentally ill people? You know, in a bizarre way, that would be good news, because we know how to deal with this. If, on the other hand, we're getting a new generation of younger, healthier, in every sense of the word, people who don't have jobs, don't have places to live, can't afford the rents, then you've got a socioeconomic problem that is not going to get solved by any man.
To the point, as Dominic put a face on, we had a young mother who had a job, but her job as a sales clerk couldn't cover the rent anymore once the number went up. And then she, like so many people, what struck me was the amount of families. Right, Dom? I mean, in the
Richard,
face of people, it's not what people want to see. It's just some junkie on the corner.
Richard, you know, I joke around a lot with Mr. Brodsky, but he hit it on the head. You know, if it's a mentally ill problem, that's one thing that society can deal with. But now we're talking about generations of women and the children. Little Gracie, the 7-year-old girl that we got to meet in this story, she's going to grow up very soon. Now think about this. She just recently got some permanency, if you will, of a regular place to stay. This girl, she has a couple of behavioral issues, but she's got to go to school. She's got to grow up. How are you going to grow up? How is there going to be stability? How is there going to be hot food? Something that we all take for granted. Food stamps, like Mrs. Toot, she receives food stamps, and one of the things we didn't include in the story was that she's been fortunate. Even in the shelters, she's always been in a shelter where you can do cooking for the most part. There are many mothers out there tonight that will be in homeless shelters with no cooking facilities. So you're getting food stamps, but what do you do to feed your children? Because with food stamps, you can't buy hot food. So little necessities like that. So Brodsky's right in terms of if this problem is mushrooming into something much bigger, it's only going to get much worse before it gets better.
And the approach to solve it, let's be honest, it wasn't just Rudy who said, you keep rounding up till they figure out they're going to go some other place. We probably saw the story in the Times about the Peekaboo program that the NYPD is doing, where they're going around with cameras, basically shooting photos of these folks here, in effect trying to shame them and trying to put a face on this thing, not as a way to try and garner support publicly, but to keep trying to get these people to keep moving, not worrying where they're going to go. Bill, what is the core responsibility of a society? Forget about where the money's going to come from. Because there's a debate about this, right? If somebody's an able-bodied person, is it society's responsibility to put a roof over their head?
No, I don't think there is. And I'm probably going to get in trouble with the panel on this. I would say whenever you make it easier to be homeless, you increase homelessness. And I think that's what Mayor Giuliani was saying. That said, I do notice anecdotally, a difference in the population from years ago where it was mostly drug addicts or mentally ill or both. I see a lot of young able-bodied people. And for young able-bodied people, I mean males, individuals, I like the Giuliani approach. For families, I think it's a very different thing that Dominic described. I think then, out of compassion, and as we're good people, then you need to try and find housing solutions. But for the young, I kick them in the butt and say, go get a job.
You've been quiet. I'll give you a chance.
For families, here is the families where people are working and cannot afford housing.
I agree.
If we are getting into a situation where significant numbers of people who have jobs or want to have jobs, and it doesn't do them any good because they can't afford to live here.
That's a huge problem.
What are you going to do? Chase them to Paramus as well?
I'm talking about the single males that are just slumming it on the streets. To me, I like the Giuliani approach is get out, go get a haircut and get a job. I sound like
that's cold-hearted and asinine. I mean,
it's not asinine because it's not asinine.
If these people had the money to move,
if you give them
they would move.
You look at Thompson Square Park 20 years ago, and you had liberal council members bringing services to guys from Scarsdale that decided to shoot dope and sit in the park. And all that does is bring another one in, and you increase the problem.
It's the liberals?
No. Yes. In many cases it was. Thompson Square Park got out of control because you had liberals bringing services in and saying, "Oh, tell me about your mother growing up. Is that why you're sitting here?" And they went out there and copped another bag.
Hasn't the slightest bit of accuracy or truth to it.
It does. There's a huge fight over it.
You want to change the debate to a subject that's worth talking about, but it's a small fraction of the homeless population.
It's not a small fraction of the homeless population.
The bulk of the homeless are either mentally ill or people who want to work.
Or drug addicts.
Mentally ill, drug addicts, or people who want to work or do work and can't afford housing. Tell you what, let's make it a private agreement. Let's not talk about the Giuliani targets. What are you going to do about the 80% of the rest of them?
Which ones? Which population?
The mentally ill, the drug addicts, and the people who have jobs but can't afford housing.
I think Giuliani, to an extent, addressed the mentally ill, where you make it uncomfortable to be on the street to drive them to get their medicine. They got to take their meds.
Be mentally ill somewhere else.
It was Cuomo that closed the clinics in New York State. He closed the hospitals and put people out on the street. If you make it easier for someone to sit on the street, you're going to get another one. And if you make it easier for two, you're going to get a third and a fourth.
Crazy.
if it was so easy to move them down the street or move them to another town, people would up and do it. But they don't have the
It was
resources.
done. It
They
was
don't
done
they don't
from
have the resources to do that.
1993.
And if you're gonna,
It was done from
and if you're gonna
1993
do it with,
until
and if you're going to do
2001.
it with police, then you're basically subsidizing their lifestyle anyway by locking them up and giving them 3 squares.
It was
or
done.
sending them to a
the
hospital
homeless
where the
population
public
went
pays the
down.
bill.
The homeless population
built
went down under
shelters.
Giuliani.
They
It went
did
down.
in Westchester.
They moved them. They moved them. They said, get out of Grand Central, get out of
the
Penn Station.
moving
I don't care
dealt
where you
with
go,
a
but not
small
here.
fraction, and it did not solve the problem.
If you coddle the
Providing
population, you're going to
housing
get
to
more of it.
Well, he just hit
You're
what
going
I
to get
think
more of it.
is the unspoken thing, at
Coddling
least
the
Bill will
mentally
say it
ill.
out loud. I think there is a feeling among critics that if you take too much care of these folks, then you become a magnet for this population that is better here than
You
somewhere
should
else.
see San Diego.
No,
Can we
no,
get-
no, no,
can we
I'm
get
just-
Can we get Pope Francis on the show?
No.
Because he can teach him lessons that I can't do.
No, but what I just still want to come back to is tomorrow there's still going to be 60,000 people, right?
Yes.
We're not building more things right now. We're doing touring and we're going where else. In the end, this comes down to money, okay? With due respect, Bill, I think kicking some folks in the rear end might work for some, but as he just profiled the woman
Not
and the
dominance,
amount of
not
other
dominance.
families
What
out
are you
there
gonna do about
that are
that?
getting
Different
moved.
situation. You do an SRO, you do a jobs program, you do whatever you can to get somebody back
gonna
on their
raise
feet.
taxes to pay for it?
No, you put money into that. You
But
put
Richard,
money into that.
I'm not dealing with the different philosophies right now on how to solve the problem. I just think it's disgusting. Maybe I was naive and didn't see the problem up close until I sat down with this woman. Think again about what she said, or maybe I didn't do a good enough job explaining it. This woman that had a good upbringing from Staten Island found herself at the notorious Family Center on the Grand Concourse in the Bronx near 151st Street. I believe they've done a new building and updated it, but it's still notorious. And at 2 o'clock, I want you to think about this. Her daughter's got to go to school the next day. When you leave the Family Center, you don't know or if you're going to get a 10-day placement. If you got a 10-day placement, you can exhale for 8 days until you're thrown out on the street. Or you might get a 1-day placement, Richard, where they pick you up at 2 a.m. These are her words, not mine, but I confirm the information. The bus picks you up at 2 a.m. with your child. In her case, a 7-year-old. By the time you get to the homeless shelter with the mice and the roaches, it's 3 a.m. and you can be kicked back out because the new day starts at 7 a.m. What type, if you have a 1-day service, what type of, so the mother gets to sleep from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m.
Yeah, and to that point, I know I'm way over on time. We can't do better, and we should do better than that. I mean,
And K2, I know you're out of time, Richard,
Triage,
but
triage.
the young people, what you're seeing a lot of
Yep.
homeless, more people out on the street. I think both of you, this K2 synthetic,
Yep.
the Times of the front page profile today.
I got to hit
it's
a break here,
horrible.
guys.
It's
All right,
horrible.
Dominic, again, it was a great piece you did. When we come back, we'll switch to the world of politics, and there actually is a tangible update, kind of, sort of. Donald Trump, the ultimate political insider, or outsider, I should say, has just signed a pledge today to stay inside the GOP's inner circle. We're going to tell you about the latest twists and turns in the Trump campaign.